Straight ahead on Law&Crime Daily. Mariah Carey is facing a legal battle over a popular Christmas song nearly 3 decades after its release. Plus, 2 men convicted of robbing and burying a Florida couple alive more than 15 years ago will face a courtroom again as jury selection begins in the resentencing trial of Alan Wade and Michael Jackson. And a Georgia man acquitted of murder is facing new charges as the complicated case of the murder of Tara Grinstead continues. But first, we're seeing the first impacts of the jury's verdict in Johnny Depp's defamation case against ex-wife Amber Heard. How the Washington Post is responding to the outcome. Law&Crime Daily covering court cases from coast to coast. Welcome everyone to Law&Crime Daily. I'm your host, Brian Buckmeyer. After a jury ruled primarily in Johnny Depp's favor in his defamation suit against ex-wife Amber Heard, the Washington Post made a notable change to the online op-ed article at the center of the case. After nearly 2 months of testimony, a jury found Amber Heard liable on 3 counts, stemming from her allegations of abuse by Depp in a Washington Post article published in 2018. Depp filed a lawsuit against Heard, saying the article, which did not mention him by name, defamed him, causing him to lose work and struggle financially. Testimony for Depp's side also argued Heard abused him on a number of occasions. Heard in turn filed a countersuit saying statements made in the Daily Mail by Depp's attorney Adam Waldman defamed her. Ultimately, the jury awarded Depp $15 million in damages and awarded $2 million to Heard for her countersuit. After the verdict, the Washington Post added an editor's note to the article detailing the 3 statements Depp claimed were false and defamatory, and the note also mentions the outcome of the trial. Heard has 30 days to appeal the verdict, which her attorney says she plans to do. Joining us today is Georgia prosecutor and city council candidate Latonia Hines and co-host Terry Austin. Latonia, the editor's note reads to me like the Washington Post is just kind of covering themselves from being sued. Is that the case, or is it something else?
I mean, I think it's both things. I think it's covering themselves from being sued, but also at the same time, they're trying to also be journalists, good journalists, and coming back and reporting what actually occurred so that you give a little bit of context about the story. And I think it was a smart move on their move to go ahead and do that.
Yeah. Terry, I'm just an attorney pretending to be a journalist. So I guess my question is, wouldn't it just be better to fully retract Amber Heard's article? Wouldn't that be a better decision at the end of the day?
Oh, I definitely think it would have been a better decision. But it was a decision, I think, that was based both on probably legal advice and probably financial concerns because, you know, the team of lawyers is going to say, look, you need to put a statement or you need to retract it. Those are the 2 main options. A statement allows the article to stay posted and it brings readers to the paper. And so, frankly, I think having the statement still there, knowing that the jury has said that several of the comments in that Post article are defamatory, it allows the Washington Post to have its cake and to eat it too. They can keep the article up. People will come to read the article. They know all about the Johnny Depp Amber Heard case, and they're going to want to read the article to see what it said. And having that statement at the top is going to protect the Washington Post. So I definitely think that they got advice from everyone, but I do think that their pocketbook was part of that decision-making process.
Absolutely. And of course, having the article out there with the disclaimer gives full context. People can read the disclaimer as well as the article and see what it's all about at the end of the day. And hey, more information is always the best, I think, in these types of situations. Thank you both. And in South Carolina, Tiger King star Doc Antle has been arrested by the FBI and is facing federal money laundering charges. Antle is the owner of the Myrtle Beach Safari featured in the 2020 Netflix documentary series Tiger King: Murder, Mayhem, and Madness. The show focused on tiger breeders and private zoo owners across the country, including Oklahoma zoo operator Joseph Allen Maldonado Passage, better known as Joe Exotic. Exotic was previously convicted and sentenced to 21 years behind bars in a plot to kill animal welfare activist Carol Baskin. Animal rights activists have accused Joe Exotic and Dr. Antle of mistreating lions and other wildlife. Antle was indicted 2 years ago on felony animal cruelty and wildlife trafficking charges. He's scheduled to go to trial in that case next month. He now faces money laundering charges after a nonprofit, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, or PETA, asked the IRS to probe his rare species fund. Antle and 2 others are accused of laundering over $500,000, believed to be proceeds from an illegal immigrant smuggling operation across the U.S.-Mexico border. Antle has a history of violations going back over 30 years. He's faced more than 35 U.S. Department of Agriculture violations for mistreatment of animals. And switching coast to California, as a trial for the man accused of killing rapper Nipsey Hussle gets underway in Los Angeles. After 3 years of delays, defendant Eric Holder will face a jury for the first time on charges of first-degree murder, attempted murder, and assault with a deadly weapon. He has pled not guilty to all charges. Holder was arrested in April 2019, less than a week after he allegedly shot Nipsey Hussle in front of the rapper's Marathon clothing store. Police say a dispute broke out between the two men after Nipsey Hussle accused Holder of being a snitch. Investigators say Holder left the store and then returned with 2 guns, a revolver, and a black semi-automatic. A medical examiner found Nipsey Hussle was shot at least 10 times, with the bullets piercing his lungs and severing his spinal cord. A witness alleges Holder told Nipsey Hussle after the shots were fired, quote, "You're through." The judge previously ruled there will be limited media coverage allowed of the trial. Jury selection is expected to stretch into next week. Holder faces life in prison if convicted. Still ahead on Law and Crime Daily, 2 Florida men face resentencing after being convicted and initially sentenced to death for the murder committed nearly 17 years ago. But first, a popular Christmas song is the topic of a new lawsuit. White man alleges Mariah Carey stole his song title in the 90s. Welcome back to Law and Crime Daily. Pop star Mariah Carey is facing legal issues as she's being sued by another artist over her hit song titled All I Want for Christmas Is You. The artist argues he wrote a song by the same title years before her holiday hit was released. Andy Stone, who performs as Vince Vance with the country pop band Vince Vance and the Valiants, doesn't argue that the songs have similar lyrics or even the same or sound the same, just that they have the exact same title. Stone is seeking at least $20 million in damages from Carey, her co-writer, and Sony Music Entertainment for copyright infringement and misappropriation. He claims he owns the copyright on the title All I Want for Christmas Is You. Stone's song was released in 1989, while Carey's song came out 5 years later in 1994. All I Want for Christmas Is You has earned Carey more than $60 million in royalties since its release. It's unclear why Stone has made the legal challenge now, 28 years after Carey's song was released. Terry, let's start off with that question right off the bat. Why now? All I Want for Christmas has been out since the mid-90s, since I was writing Santa Claus letters. Is the timing going to affect this case at all as to how old it is?
Well, that's an excellent question, Brian. Copyrights are governed by federal law because under the U.S. Patent and Trademark and Copyright Office, obviously it's a federal issue. The statute of limitations there is 3 years, no matter what, from the date of the last act of infringement. We're in Louisiana here. That's the Fifth Circuit. They follow the discovery rules. So the statute actually starts to run when someone discovers or should have discovered that there was a copyright infringement. But the interesting thing is here, this really should have been a trademark case because copyright really protects a work of art. This is just a title or a phrase which is generally protected by a trademark. So it should be booted just based on the fact that it's the wrong cause of action.
Yeah, I guess, Latonia, we kind of got put over it there, but the argument is only about the title of the song, not the lyrics. So how can you copyright or trademark, as Terry has just taught us, what seems to be such a generic phrase?
It's very generic. I mean, look at it. We've had a lot of songs like Jump. I mean, you've got at least 3 different artists who've done a song named Jump. Van Halen, Criss Cross, Madonna. So I think it makes it very hard to just say the name itself makes it a trademark onto itself for purposes of getting royalties. Usually it's about the melody, whether or not you're using the same music that is in another song that's been copyrighted or whatever. I think it's going to be very hard, especially 28 years later, to now bring this suit up, and especially about a title.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm biased, but that's Mariah's song. So we're going to figure out how this is going to play out. But I'm on Team Mariah on this one. We'll see how the lawyers decide it, though. Switching gears now to New Hampshire, as the stepmother of a missing child, Harmony Montgomery, waived her arraignment on new charges Monday, just the day before the girl's birthday. Police believe Harmony has been missing since late 2019 while she was in her father, Adam Montgomery's custody. In early 2020, officials say Adam told Child Protective Services Harmony had been living with her mother, Crystal Sorry. Harmony wasn't officially reported missing until November 2021. No one has been charged in relation to her disappearance, but Kayla Montgomery, Adam's estranged wife, has faced welfare fraud charges, accused of claiming Harmony as a member of her household, even though she was not living with her and Adam at the time. Kayla now faces perjury charges for allegedly lying to a grand jury. Harmony's 8th birthday is Tuesday. Anyone with information about Harmony's disappearance can call or text the 24-hour tip line at the bottom of your screen. And in Minnesota, 2 former cops charged in the death of George Floyd won't face trial until 2023. The judge's ruling to delay Tu Tao and J. Alexander King's trial until January next year comes less than a month after their fellow former officer, Thomas Lane, pled guilty in the state case against them. While the judge denied a request to move the trial to a different county, he did say publicity surrounding the federal conviction and Lane's guilty plea is, quote, particularly troublesome and does create a reasonable likelihood of an unfair trial. The judge has already set specific dates for the trial to begin in mid-January. The 3 former Minneapolis police officers were convicted by a federal jury of civil rights violations just 4 months ago. Lane, King, and Tao were fellow officers of ex-cop Derek Chauvin, who was tried last year in state court of killing George Floyd in 2020, when he knelt on his neck for more than 9 minutes during an attempted arrest. Floyd's death sparked nationwide protests and debate over use of force by police officers. Chauvin was sentenced to 22.5 years in prison. All 4 officers are awaiting sentencing for the federal charges. Coming up on Law&Crime Daily, convicted murderers will soon learn their new fate as jury selection begins in the resentencing trial of Alan Wade and Michael Jackson. Plus, Ryan Duke is acquitted of killing, but now faces new charges in a neighboring Georgia county in relation to the death of Tara Grinstead. Welcome back. Jury selection begins in the trial of a Florida woman accused of stabbing her husband to death in their home in 2019. Danielle Redlick faces second-degree murder charges and tampering with evidence charges in the stabbing death of her husband, Michael Redlick. Investigators say Redlick called 911, initially telling dispatchers her husband had a heart attack after the two had an altercation. In 911 calls, she claimed Michael stabbed himself and that she woke up next to him deceased. But investigators believe Michael's wounds were not self-inflicted and that Danielle tried to clean up the crime scene before calling 911. The 65-year-old was previously married to Danielle's mother while she suffered and eventually succumbed to cancer. He also worked as the director of the University of Central Florida Sports Business Management Program. Prosecutors offered Danielle a plea deal to plead guilty to manslaughter charges 2 years ago, but she rejected it. On Monday, the judge read Danielle's charges to the group of prospective jurors.
This is the state of Florida versus Danielle Justine Redlick. It charges count number 1, second-degree murder with a firearm, count 2, tampering with physical evidence. I misspoke. It's second-degree murder with a weapon, and then tampering with physical evidence. It alleges that Danielle Justine Redlick, on the 11th day of January 2019 or the 12th day of January 2019 in Orange County, Florida, by an act eminently dangerous to another and evincing a depraved mind regardless of human life, did kill Michael Redlick, and in the course of committing said offense, Danielle Justine Redlick did carry, display, use, threaten to use, or attempt to use a weapon.
Once the jury is selected, opening statements could begin as early as Wednesday. And jury selection begins in another Florida case, the death penalty phase retrial for 2 men convicted in a 2005 double murder. Alan Wade and Michael James Jackson are 2 of 4 people involved in the deaths of Reggie and Carol Sumner. Alan Wade, Michael James Jackson, Tiffany Cole, and Bruce Nixon were all convicted over a decade ago for their involvement in the murder. Cole was the connection between all the players involved, as she previously had been the Sumners' neighbor before the couple moved to Jacksonville. Cole argues Jackson hatched the plan to break into the couple's home while they were away, but that plan evolved into killing them. Prosecutors argued at the defendant's trial that the four dug a hole in a remote wooded spot in Georgia before kidnapping the Sumners. The group stole from Reggie and Carol's home, then forced them into the trunk of their own car. Then, in two separate cars, the Sumners and a rental, the foursome drove Reggie and Carol to the remote location. They forced the couple to share their bank account information before burying them alive. Wade, Jackson, and Cole were all sentenced to death for the murder. Nixon took a plea deal, pleading guilty to second-degree murder. Now, Wade and Jackson will be resentenced after a change in Florida law, which requires a unanimous jury decision for the death penalty. Terry, how much of the fact that Florida juries now need to be unanimous to change this resentencing trial, does it mean that it's going to be a lot harder for the prosecution to secure a death penalty, I guess?
You know, I don't think it's going to be harder. I think that they're going to have to put in evidence to show what exactly occurred and make the jury understand that this was a heinous crime and that they're going to have to get a conviction, and it's going to be, the penalty rather, is having to be unanimous. You can't have not even one juror say no death penalty. So I think that the prosecution is going to look at this. They're going to make sure that all the evidence gets in. They're going to see whether or not they have mitigating factors, factors that are aggravating, to make sure that this jury totally understands that it has to be unanimous.
And for the defense, they'll be saying, we just need one. Now, Latonia, you helped prosecute the men responsible for the death of Ahmaud Arbery, and you've seen your fair share of trials. My understanding is that we're going to have two juries here in a single trial. How does that work, and why is that going on?
Because we have a bifurcated system. When you have the first part of it is the trial part, and you deal with whether or not somebody's convicted, and then you're going to have the part dealing with the penalty phase. And that's the issue here, is that they're doing a resentencing with regard to the penalty phase, whether or not they actually get the death penalty or not. And so that's why you have the two different juries.
All right, we'll see what this jury decides as they evaluate. Terry, you said it best. The prosecution is going to present all that evidence and see how they come to that conclusion of death or no death. And of course, Florida laws have changed, requiring that to be unanimous. So we'll keep track on this. Not the Michael Jackson you're probably thinking of, Michael James Jackson and Alan out the death penalty charges out of Florida. When we come back, new charges for a Georgia man acquitted of murder last month. We'll discuss the case of Ryan Dukes and Bo Dukes, charged in relation to the death and disappearance of Tara Grinstead. Welcome back. Just 2 weeks after a Georgia man was acquitted of murdering a beauty queen and teacher 17 years ago, he's facing new charges in a neighboring county. Ryan Duke faced an Irwin County jury last month for Tara Grinstead's murder, but was ultimately charged with concealing her death. Duke pointed the finger at his former friend and classmate Bo Dukes, who was already serving 25 years in prison on charges related to the case. Grinstead went missing in 2005, but her disappearance remained a mystery for more than a decade. At Ryan Duke's trial last month, he told jurors he lied when he confessed to the teacher's murder in 2017, but admitted to helping Bo Dukes dispose of her body by burning it in a pecan orchard at a nearby county. Duke now faces 6 new charges in neighboring Ben Hill County, including concealing the death of another, hindering apprehension or punishment of a criminal concealment of facts, and tampering with evidence. In the Irwin County case, Duke was sentenced to 10 years in prison. He faces more prison time if convicted in Ben Hill County. Bo Dukes also faces charges in Ben Hill County. The trial for those charges is set to start as early as the end of June. Latonia, help us make heads or tails of this. How does this work? A defendant serving time in one county but indicted for the same death. Is that in a different county, sorry? Is that double jeopardy or is that allowed?
I mean, it's allowed in certain cases because you're saying that information that happened, new information's come out, new evidence has come out that something actually happened in this particular county, that venue lies here. This is where the actual crime occurred. And what we're talking about here is specifically about the concealment of death. And that information came out by his own admission on the stand of saying where it occurred in Ben Hill County. And so now you've got new charges there based off of this information.
All right, so probably death in one county, concealment in another, and that's how they're kind of splitting it up. Terry, should we be expecting the same case and same result in a different county since things are so similar, or is this completely different in all matters in the Ben Hill County case?
You know, I think it's going to be a very similar case because there are very similar charges. Two different counties, like you said, Irwin County, where we saw this case, and then Ben Hill County, where we'll see the second case. I think most of that evidence in the second case is going to be focusing on, like it was in the first case, what occurred after the murder, who handled the body, who told who to do what. And I think that basically the big issue here is the fact that neither county brought murder charges. We know there was a confession, and it seems to me that the prosecution missed an opportunity in both counties to bring charges for murder in this case. So I think that was a big missed opportunity.
Yeah, we'll see how they make out with that in this case. Thank you both, and thank you for joining us here on Law and Crime Daily. We'll see you next time as we discuss justice in America.